Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot and very happy to be here today. We're going to do a very interesting conversation with John Lear, and many people know who John is. He's so well known that I don't think I'm even going to introduce him. But at any rate, we're going to discuss this new document that has come out. They're calling it a leak from an Admiral Wilson, and he did not release the document himself. In fact, he is now denying that he had anything to do with what went on in the document. But it is apparently a legitimate document, and it is a conversation that was supposedly had between a Dr. Eric Davis, who is a scientist that heads up Hal Puthoff's company. And Hal Puthoff is a very well known and well regarded physicist who headed up SRI years ago and has been involved in all kinds of research into alternate forms of technology, free energy, if you want to call it that, and various other things. So at this point, I'm going to bring John on the screen, and John, why don't you say hello to everyone?
What's it? Why did I wait?
John, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
What did you ask me?
Hi, John, can you hear us? We're going
Yes,
live now, and we've got you on the screen. I've given you a short introduction, and just wondering if you want to introduce yourself, anything, just say a few words about yourself.
I'm still alive, and uh, I still have my cigars, my pipe that I smoke, and I live in my den here. I haven't been out except to the doctor for about 8 years, and I've got still a few things wrong, but I hope to get them corrected. I have a torn rotator cuff in my right shoulder that has to be operated on, and my eyes are constantly flowing fluid, and I'm cross-eyed to the point where I usually wear a patch, but I took it off for this took it off for this interview. Other than that, things are okay.
Okay, what we're going to do here, just for the public, in case you can hear me, is I know we're having some trouble with what's called buffering, and we will record this and put this online later if it doesn't come through live. So don't worry about that. We are
Okay.
going to continue this discussion regardless. So at this moment, what I want to do is basically just talk about this newest leak, John, your understanding of what's going on with it, whether you think the document is legitimate, etc.
Yeah, well, you sent me the document. I read it. It looked completely legit to me, and it just proves that the government can keep a secret if they want to. It's very well done, very well kept secret, and the conversation for the two was absolutely legitimate. One thing I wanted to ask is, what were they talking about on the bigot list? What's the bigot list?
Okay, the bigot list is a list that is basically the people that are let in. In other words, I think it's like a joke that they call it a bigot list. In other words, they're the people that get access.
Okay, so that's about 400 people.
Yes, apparently, according to. Now, I thought it was very suspicious, however, that if you have an admiral, and this is back in 1997, if you have an admiral who suddenly is working as the deputy director of the DIA, he's also J2 intelligence, advising the Joint Chiefs in intelligence, and he suddenly decides that he wants to investigate finding a project, which is, or a program, which is, uh, I guess, above top secret, and he goes to a defense contractor, eventually makes it there and talks to the program manager. He talks to the head of their security, and he talks to their lawyer in a meeting that he sets up. And basically, they tell him he has no access, but at the same time, they're willing to show him a document in which he gets to see everyone else who has access. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, so, you know, they can keep a secret, and they've done it well. And this is the first document I've seen that really points out how they do it. Now, I don't know what they tell people when they give them a clearance, but considering how long all this has been going on, and not one single person has leaked it, uh, I don't know how they do that.
All right. Well, this leak, as it's called, apparently the way it got out is by a sort of a convoluted set of circumstances. It looks like Edgar Mitchell, the former astronaut, was instrumental in having a copy of what was a recorded conversation between this Admiral Wilson back in 1997 and uh, and Eric Davis, again, this scientist, top scientist that works with Hal Puthoff. And he also worked in NIDS and with Bigelow, apparently, in the past. And so what happens is this is a recorded conversation again between these two individuals. It's written down on paper, so it's a transcript of the recorded conversation. And it looks like maybe there's a couple handwritten notes or added or even typed notes along with it. There's a letter, as you saw, from a commander, a Lieutenant Commander Miller. And that particular individual, I believe back in 2002, when all of this went on, the conversation was about what the Admiral did back in 1997 in order to discover these, what is in essence a black project. So for some reason, Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis were trying to get access to this top secret group or above top secret group within a defense contractor. The defense contractor, as far as I can tell, and this has not been confirmed, is Northrop Grumman. Okay,
Yeah.
and there's a reason. I'm going to do a presentation this weekend, as a matter of fact, at my conference about this in detail. But the bottom line is that it is one of the top 5 defense contractors that our government works with. So, you know, there's a lot of the usual suspects: Boeing, uh, Lockheed Martin, obviously Skunk Works, and so on. So one of them is Northrop Grumman, and there are other ones as well. So in other words, what happens is it's a hidden project, and in 1997, you've got the deputy DIA suddenly waking up. I'm not sure why or how or whether he was tasked to do this by his superior officer, but he suddenly decides to investigate. He asks questions around. He creates this meeting with the representatives of the defense contractor at the Pentagon, and they basically tell him no, he has no access, but they do acknowledge to him that it is reverse engineering of alien technology. They say not made by human hands, which in essence has to be alien in essence, ET, whatever you want to call it, right?
Right.
And so this is the leaked information. That's basically, if you want to gel the whole document down, is sort of the revelation coming out. Now, someone got to Admiral Wilson recently, Rich Dolan, as you may know, that researcher. He called him up to get confirmation of any kind, and he denied having anything to do with it. He denied being denied access, in essence. But this is, I don't know how many years later. What are we, about 17, 18, 19? So it's about 12 years later. Is that about 97, whenever this went on? So that's about 12, 13 years ago. Or is that 23 years ago? That's 23 years ago, because we're in 2017. Anyway, so yeah, so 20 years, whenever it was. So you understand what I'm saying is that Wilson, right now, Admiral Wilson is still alive. He's denying that this went on, but we've got proof. Now, back in 2002, Stephen Greer and his group actually heard from Admiral Wilson. And it's not clear whether Admiral Wilson talked to Stephen Greer directly about this or whether the guy who worked for Stephen Greer at the time, which is a military consultant, whose name is Lieutenant Commander Miller. And I don't know if you know these parties. Had you met them in your travels?
Have I what?
Have you met them, any of these players?
No, no, I haven't met any of them.
Okay. So Lieutenant Commander Miller, who was working as a military consultant to Stephen Greer, basically has somehow leaked this information to Stephen Greer, having heard that Admiral Wilson was telling, well, it looks like he told Edgar Mitchell, for one thing, and Miller himself, that he did not have access back in 97. And this made its way into the public because Greer announced it at a conference back in 2002. So now, all these years later, so after 2002, we are hearing here in 2019 that this meeting went on back in 97, that a conversation was had between Admiral Wilson and this consultant who is a military guy, Lieutenant Commander Miller, discussing the fact that Admiral Wilson did not have access and went on a hunt to get access and basically was denied. And so, yeah, it shows you that they hide these things deeply in what they call special access programs. They are unacknowledged special access programs. I don't know if you've heard of those. And then there's an oversight body that's supposed to be monitoring those kinds of programs, or at least the access to them, that's part of our government. Are you familiar with that?
Familiar with what?
Are you familiar with the special access programs, that
Yeah,
terminology?
sure. That's part of all clearances, is that there's all kinds of special access.
Okay, so this is called an unacknowledged special access program. and,
Yeah,
and in spite and on top of that, it's called a sub unacknowledged special access program. So
yeah.
it's even hidden below that. So this is what we're talking about now. This is how the secret government, secret space program has conducted its operations. It's just a small keyhole in to how they operate. And the reason I'm having you on the show today is basically to give your opinion on what you see there, and the fact that they did acknowledge that they were reverse engineering alien tech. You've been out to Area 51. You're one of the key people to do with Bob Lazar. He basically said he worked on such a program. What do you have to say?
Yeah, well, we knew all this 30 years ago when Bob got in there. Now, the thing with Bob is that program, the Bob Lazar John Lear program, was engineered by Mike McConnell, who was MJ1. And what he wanted to do was get some of the information out, but in such a way that they could instantly discredit it if things went wrong, if the public went nuts. So what they did is they found a guy who was really, really informed, intelligent, and really would understand everything they had up there, who was Bob Lazar. But he had a background. They erased his college records, and he had a background where at one point he had a cat house up in Reno, and they were going to use this if things turned sour. Now, the plan was to let him up there and give him some information, and they knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that whatever Bob signed, that he was going to come and tell me, which he did, and that was the plan. And the plan was that he would tell me, and I would tell everybody else what he had told me, and they would be able to see how the public reacted uh, to the fact that we had 9 extraterrestrial disks and they were trying to reverse engineer it and all that. And it went along fine. They had no reason to come out and absolutely discredit him because the public pretty much went along and accepted all of this. So the people that don't think it was real, they're wrong. It was real, and it was planned from beginning to end by Majestic themselves. That was their plan to release a little bit of the information. Now, the public doesn't know that much. The Pentagon, the secret government, has collected information since Roswell 70 years ago, and and they have all kinds of stuff. They have, probably at least 60 ET craft. They have probably at least 70 different uh, bodies of different civilizations, extraterrestrials. They have all kinds of photos and um, movies of retrievals. The crash retrievals were run by the Blue Berets, and the Blue Berets were out of that. Trying to think of that base in Colorado, and they moved very quickly, very silently. They only used personnel that had no families or anybody they could talk to, and they've run these crash recoveries or these retrievals for 70 years now, and they've done it very, very quietly and very, very secretly, and it's impressive the way they've done it. Now, the book that came out a year or so ago, Crash at Aztec, or I forget the name of it, that told a lot of the program and a lot about the retrievals. But as I told the authors, they never found out what the name of the retrieval group was, which was Blue Berets. And this letter that we've seen, all this does is confirm that the government is able to keep a secret, and the people who say, "Oh no, the government can't see what we found out about Watergate," that's all baloney. All that stuff, was engineered specifically to make the people believe that that we could uncover anything we wanted. But the fact is, we can't. And they have done a very good job of keeping it secret. As I told you before, uh, all of the uh, all the stuff up at S4 was moved about 3 or 4 years ago to Woomera in South Central Australia. Woomera was the area where the Australians did their nuclear tests, and there's all kinds of underground facilities, underground hangars, and all kinds of stuff. And we moved everything lock, stock, and barrel down there because they were getting tired of people going up to Rachel and down in the black mailbox and watching their test flights. So it all moved down to Woomera. Fortunately, I have a friend that lives there, and he keeps me up to date on what's going on, and there's a lot going on. They fly around in groups of anti-gravity craft at 7 or 8 at a time. They have a very clever way of camouflaging it because, of course, you can see in the dark, you can see lights in the sky. But what they do is they broadcast a airplane reciprocating engine sound. And so what they determined was people won't look up if they hear an airplane engine. They would look up if they saw a light and no sound to go with it. So what they do is when they fly, they broadcast this engine, regular airplane engine reciprocating engine sound, and it keeps people from, if they hear that, they know it's an airplane, so they're not going to look up. And that's how they get away with a lot of this stuff.
Okay, well, what about this idea of how defense contractors, such as Boeing, Lockheed, and in this case, Northrop, are hiding basically special access programs, as they call them, even unacknowledged, which in essence amounts to black projects and reverse engineering alien tech. All of this hidden in these defense contractors. I mean, we have known this for many years, but this document actually substantiates that in quite a big way. So, what do you know? Are you aware of the defense contractors? How these programs are handled?
No, I know that they do handle them. I know that there's many different layers of technology, and there's layers that the public is allowed to find out about, and then there's layers above that, and then there's layers above that. Now, just as an example, this airplane that the space shuttle, I forget what the number was. I think it was 88 or something like that. Those guys were in orbit, and they saw an aircraft come up. They took pictures of it, and uh, uh, the thing that they were taking pictures of was so secret, and the compartmentalization was so firmly in place that nobody could tell them, don't take don't take pictures or don't release the pictures, because it was too secret. And it was kind of an inside joke because the government, in order to discredit what they had seen as which was obviously a highly advanced space plane of some sort, they decided first to call it a UFO, and then that didn't work, and so then they decided to call it the Black Knight. Now, the Black Knight was a orbiting craft of some kind that we found out about in 1953. We didn't know what it was. We didn't have anything in orbit at that time, and they gave it a name, the Black Knight. And as far as I know, the thing is still in orbit. But what the secret government tried to do is tell us that that plane that the shuttle crew took a picture of was the Black Knight, which is, of course, nonsense. It was just a highly advanced space plane that they use in orbit. Now, the the secret space program is operated out of Kwajalein Island in the South Pacific, and they launch at least 4 rockets a month. They have all kinds of advanced rocket technology, and they put these space planes in the nose of the rocket, and when it gets into orbit, the nose opens up and the space plane comes out and does all kinds of things. And we have hundreds of orbiting laboratories, facilities. We have a couple of foundries. The foundries make what is known as D.D, and it's a material that's stronger than steel, lighter than titanium, and with a small amount of electricity, it can keep water away from the material about 5 to 7 centimeters. So what they use this stuff for, and it has to be made in orbit, it has to be made in zero gravity. And what they do is they use these panels that are made in orbit for their new Navy craft, such as the Gerald Ford aircraft carrier that just came out a few years ago. They use that for the hull material. And what it enables them to do with a small amount of electrical power running through this material, they can keep the water from 5 to centimeters away from the hull. Now, up to now, or up to a few years ago, all the hull-based boats are limited by the equation of 1.34 times the square root of the water line, which gives you a maximum speed, and it's usually between 35 and 45 knots, which is about all we've been able to do. But with using this material in the hull, there is no friction, and they can go. Those giant aircraft carriers like the Gerald Ford can go between 100 and 125 knots, which is really rolling along. Now, in addition to this, they used we've had for the last 14 years the fusion reactors, and fusion is 10 times more powerful and 10 times lighter than the fission reactors we've been using. And what that does is phenomenally decrease the weight and increase the power. So it's from that they use the power to give electricity to the D.D, which keeps the water away from the hull, and it can go at these tremendous speeds. And then people say, well, wouldn't the sailors want to know why it was going that fast? And the way they handle that is nobody's allowed on deck while they're underway at these top speeds. And then when they get to where they're going and the sailor finds out that, they're there 2 or 3 days before they should have been, they know better than to ask questions. That's why they're sailors. And if you're in the Navy, you know that you do not go around asking, hey, how come we got here 2 or 3 days here? Because you're going to find yourself in the brig. So that's the way they handle that. Now, in addition to the aircraft carriers, they're using it for submarines. And the submarines use not only the advanced fusion technology and not only the D.D, but they've developed a way to use deck power for the propulsion of the submarines. And very highly advanced and very efficient, and they're doing a great job. My only problem with all this is who in the hell are we fighting? We're friends with Russia. We have been friends with Russia since the end of World War II. We have divided up space exploration projects, sent Russia to Venus, and we tried to get to the moon. And basically, anything we swear to, or Russians swear to, or they lie, we swear they're telling the truth. And the other way works that if they tell a story, we swear to that. So this has been going on for years, and the public is told that after the shuttle program, we have to beg the Russians for a ride to the International Space Station. Down at Kwajalein Island, there's launching craft, 3 or 4 times a month. And out at Kwajalein Island, there's probably between 1,000 and 1,500 astronauts, current qualified, most of them in orbit. And they've managed to keep that secret, and they do that very well. But they tell the public that we have to beg the Russians for a ride to the International Space Station. There's so much going on in orbit; it's unbelievable.
Well, you're familiar with the Venture Star.
What's that?
Are you familiar with a craft called the Venture Star?
No.
Okay, well, Gordon Novell talked about it many years ago, and there's been pictures on the internet of it. It is said to be flown out of up near Dugway, Utah, and basically it carries, I don't know, 15, 20 scientists, that type of thing. It's not a huge craft, but it does go basically up to the moon and Mars at any rate, and goes there very quickly. Now, I'm wondering whether you can address this idea of an admiral back in '97 trying to find a secret project, and whether or not he, as a what is in essence, he was a rear admiral at that time. He was, as I say, the deputy director of the DIA. Not being read in, and at the same time, he wouldn't go looking, in my estimation of understanding military protocol, he wouldn't go looking for a project that was hidden and asking questions unless his supervisor, the guy he reports to, had been on board with him doing so. And that would mean we're talking about a general, and that general is General Hughes. He was head of the DIA at the time. And I don't know if you're familiar with General Hughes.
Well, first of all, let me address when you say go to the moon and go to the Mars. I don't believe that. I don't believe we've been to the moon. I don't believe we've been to Mars. Now
Okay,
we
well,
may.
I don't know if you're changing your story, but in the past, you've always acknowledged that we have cities on the moon and Mars.
A
We
long
have
time ago.
underground bases there. We have all kinds of secret space equipment there, and I've got so many witnesses to this. That is kind of over the top. Now, if you want to change your story about that and you want to say we're not there, then that's your business and that's okay. But if that's the case, then we probably should move on. But they're actually they don't have all this space equipment and secret space program
Carrie,
to not go into space. There is no reason to have a secret space program if you don't go in space.
Carrie,
Yeah,
this is an interview with me. I want you to shut your mouth while I talk.
I'm
Okay.
talking right now. Actually,
Yeah.
yeah, I was
Okay.
talking.
Now,
Yeah, I'm
here
not going to
I
shut
am.
my mouth while I'm talking because that would mean I'm
So
not talking.
years
So
ago,
I
I had
I'm asking you, I'm asking you a different
years ago,
question.
I we had
If you
some.
want to argue
I
and
don't
go back on stuff you've said in the
want
past,
to bring that up. That's fine. But the fact is, at this time, at this point, I don't believe we've been to the moon, and I don't believe we've been to Mars.
all right, fair enough.
And
That's fine. So what is just out of curiosity, where does the secret space program if they don't go to the moon and Mars?
everything is in low Earth orbit. That's all the
It's
space.
kind of a waste of time, isn't it?
Well, why would it be a waste of time?
I don't know. Why would you be doing this? Bob Lazar worked on this program back in the 60s. You think they've made no progress since then? Are you not just going back and basically been told by MJ12 to just back up on everything?
I don't know anybody in MJ12.
Oh, come
Uh,
on. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about this document leak, okay?
okay, first we're going to finish your comment that Bob Lazar back in the 60s. It was Bob Lazar in 1979 or 1989 when he came out with his information. He said nothing about going to the moon, nothing about going to Mars. And the fact is, because of the Van Allen belt, we can't go anywhere. We're not
Haven't you
supposed to.
ever heard of a portal? You're not familiar with signal non-locality. You're not familiar with bending space-time. Are you really going back in time that far, John?
That's all bullshit. It just.
Oh God, this guy Lou Baldwin is this who you're relying on for your information now?
Out, Gary. The fact is we can't get there, and we don't get there. All of our stuff is in
All
orbit.
right.
And you,
Well, yeah. I mean, I appreciate your motivation. All right. We've got your testimony on that. Can you talk about the document and the relationship in the military between an admiral and his superior officer? Do you have anything to say about whether or not he would be under orders or not?
yes, well, that same thing happened a couple of years ago, where the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff asked for a briefing on something he'd heard about, and they said you don't have enough clearance. And he said, "What are you talking about? I'm chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff." And he got the shock of his life when they said, you don't have high enough clearance, and you're not going to get high enough clearance. This goes on all the time.
Okay, so the Joint Chiefs of Staff didn't have access. What's so secret if he doesn't have access?
No, no. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff didn't have
All
access.
right, the chairman.
Other there are other Joint Chiefs that do have access, but they didn't want to give the chairman access because he asked for it, and they said, "No, you don't have enough. You don't have high enough clearance."
Okay, what other Joint Chiefs do have clearance? Why don't you tell me that?
Well, I don't know. That's a secret. That's what we're talking about, and that's why it's a secret. Your question was, why did this happen? Back in '97 or whenever it was, and this guy wanted to know something, and they wouldn't let him know, and that's the reason. Some people get to know, some people don't. It's very closely in.
Okay, and do you think you've been let in?
And when
Do you think you know?
do I know?
Yes.
I don't know anything.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So, do you think that you've had access to know whether or not the secret space program, where they're going, how far they've progressed since '97, for example?
That's all speculation. Nobody told me that. I just figured
Okay.
that out. I've been to Kwajalein Island. Have you? Oh, you haven't been there. I doubt if you know where Kwajalein Island is.
Okay.
But that's where the secret space program operates out of. I don't have to have a clearance to know that.
Fair enough. And so, you think they're just scooting around in low Earth orbit where the satellites are? Is that correct?
Yeah, we can just operate in low Earth orbit. We have many programs operating up there. We have the 13 direct energy weapons, some of which were used to carry out the 9/11 disintegration of World Trade Centers 1 and 2 and 7, some of which were used to start the California fires. There's all kinds of things they use those weapons for. And when you say they, or when I say they, I'm talking about the Nazi Zionist alliance, which was formed halfway through World War II. And that was an alliance between the Zionists and the Nazis to eventually overtake the United States, which they've done. And in my opinion, they have complete control of the United States, and there's nothing we can do about it. Their headquarters is in that test site, which I call the Kingdom of the Nazi Zionist Alliance. And I drew a picture on my Facebook page where I put a map there of where it is and where it extends to. Right now, it has the regular boundaries of the Nevada test site, which about 10 years ago, they increased everybody that had a clearance to go into Groom Lake Area 51. That was a special thing where they did all kinds of measurements and weights and all kinds of stuff just to get into Area 51. Now, anywhere you go in the Nevada test site, you have to go through that. And a little story here behind is one of the reasons they weigh you is because when Bob Lazar worked up at S4, he managed to take in, this is before they started weighing everybody, he managed to take in a little teeny camera that you can buy in the drugstore, and he hid it in the hollow leg of one of his chairs. And he never did get a chance to take any pictures because for other reasons he didn't get to go back there. Now, when he left, somebody obviously found that camera and figured out what he'd done. And that's when they started weighing everybody in and weighing everybody out. So there's no possibility that that could happen again. But there's all kinds of ways that they have of securing that test site. Right now, they're trying to expand the eastern border of the test site. They want to take over the Desert National Wildlife Refuge and then expand it all the way to the Colorado River. And the reason I know that is because up in Gold Butte, when I worked up there, we knew there were huge underground bases in operation up there. And that's been, let's see, it's 2019, that's been, 20 years ago. And so they've got all kinds of stuff going on to expand that Nazi alliance, Kingdom of Nazi Alliance to the west, or to the east. Now, to the west, they want to take it to the Sierra Nevadas. And there's been all kinds of secret military operations southwest of Tonopah where they're digging something. And that's just the regular expansion of the Kingdom of Nazi Zionist Alliance. Now, along with that is, on my Facebook, I've posted about the new secret test site that's halfway between Groom Lake and the Tonopah Test Range.